my name is Ahmed. I'm the CEO and co-founder of EdenMountain. I'm originally from Syria, been based in Turkey for the past 10, 12 years, so way too long. So my background is mostly in tech. So I have a bachelor degree in computer science and also did a master's in cybersecurity from Istanbul Technical University, one of the top universities in Europe. After that, I worked at different startups and companies. So, for 7, 8 years, worked at startups like 1, 2, maybe 3 engineers, very limited resources, and also listed companies over 100 engineers. So, I've seen the difference, what kind of resources, the difference of resources that different companies has and how they utilize it and the challenges they see. And I think we will get to that more in a minute. But from that, I tried to build my own startup with our CTO and my dearest friend. So I've known him since college, Iden. So we tried to build our own startup together. We met the founder of EdenMountain and chairman of the board, Mr. Hussam Shubakshi. So we met him trying to pitch our own startup. And funnily enough, he did not like it. So he did not invest in the startup itself, but I think he liked us as people more. And it's something that I always say that I'm very appreciative of. And so we worked together on different projects and then started EdenMountain together. I think about more than a year ago, a year and a bit.
Fantastic, thank you. So what inspired you to kind of co-found EdenMountain, and how did your background help you lead it?
So, the idea of EdenMountain and eNorse came from Hussam Shubakshi, as I said, our founder and chairman of the board. He's a very long, an investor that has a huge experience. I've been working in the field basically before I was even born, right? And it came to him from basically seeing the same problem over and over again, right? You would have companies that have a solid business model that trying to scale up. They have something proven that can work, but they are trying to scale up and traditional funding options are not working for them, right? Either they don't want to give up control, they want to bring in a VC that would take a part of their company and maybe take over their actual running the company, or they don't qualify or don't want to incur debt, right? Just going to a bank and get something that will sustain them for a year that needs to be paid back 2 times in a couple of years. Or the traditional franchising model does not work for them, right? And so it's seeing this problem over and over again. And funny enough, and I sometimes rumble a little bit, right? And start going into stories. So please stop me if I go too long. But there is a very funny story that really crystallized, I think, what EdenMountain is. The founder of EdenMountain, Mr. Hussam, he was visiting Denmark, Copenhagen, and he saw Jean de Juice. I'm sure you are aware of it. It's a very well-known coffee and juice parlor. And so he saw them when they had just one branch, one location. And he liked the concept, liked the idea, and told them, okay, look, I want to bring you into Saudi Arabia. Look, you have a very good branding. Coffee culture is extremely big in the GCC. I think you would make a lot of money, make us both rich. And they said, well, Saudi Arabia is very far away, right? We maybe think of opening another branch in Copenhagen, maybe expand into Sweden, into Germany, not looking beyond the EU, let alone Saudi Arabia. And the conversation with them fell there, right? Fast forward today, they have over 100 branches in Saudi Arabia. So he missed on a huge opportunity because it was just too early, right? And from that, I think the core idea of EdenMountain came. On a more personal level, as I said, as a software developer, I worked with companies that have very limited resources, trying to scale up, trying to find how to sustain themselves a couple more months because they have the potential. And also I worked at the companies where, look, they have a proven model, they have a lot of money, they have a lot of resources, but they want the local experience. Like they want someone in the market that understands the market to help expand it into. And they spend quite a lot of money trying to find which market that is. And so finding that correct partner has always been a challenge. And that's, again, something that EdenMountain tries to solve. Finally, also on a personal level, as I said, I have a master's degree in cybersecurity. And so that's been surprisingly relevant as well, right? We're building a platform that handles financial information, private information about companies. We have sellers and buyers of very high caliber trusting us with their personal information, personal IDs, for example, for compliance checks. And so building a rock solid security architecture has been insanely important to really have the trust of our customers, either sellers or buyers. And I don't think I could have built that security architecture without having that security background from my masters.
Perfect, thank you. And like you say, that's so important, and it's something that, you know, everyone using the platform will really want to know. Okay, so what do you believe the future looks like for enterprise non-operating rights, and how is EdenMountain facilitating that?
Look, ENORs are, I think, filling a gap that's been hiding in plain sight. You know, in the future, I think, well, at least I hope, it becomes a standard option alongside traditional funding methods that I've talked about. You know, capital raising through VCs, diluting ownership, raising through raising capital through a loan, franchising. So you say, okay, and ENOR, right? And because I think they are a perfect opportunity for companies that proven their method and are trying, just want the capital to expand and without losing control of their companies. And you know what's interesting is that the story I told you about Hussam, we've heard it like 4 or 5 times from different buyers that we've had this conversation. Just this morning, we were on a call with a guy that runs a company that it's basically like a innovation brokerage. He founds businesses abroad, tried to bring them into Saudi Arabia, and finds operators there. And he told us after I pitched him the idea, he said, look, I sometimes I'm in London or Barcelona, and I see an amazing business. And I go to them, look, I have a company dedicated to bring you in-house, right? Bring you in Saudi Arabia. I tell you, look, that's extremely interesting, but we don't have the capital, the experience, the capacity to actually expand now. Let's talk in a couple of years. And he told us that, well, look, ENORs fill that gap. ENORs are the perfect vehicle to exactly answer that question. We are too early, we are not ready now, but we have the potential in a couple of years. So he told us, like, I instantly see it. His eyes light up, right? And because it's really about bringing a successful concept to your home country. And I think EdenMountain is making that future of bringing foreign businesses into your home market at a very low entry point, a possibility for a lot of people. You don't need to be a high net worth individual. You don't need to be extremely wealthy to be able to hold this valuable asset, to hold that key of entry into the market. And so it's not just about rich people getting more rich by finding businesses to bring home, but also providing this alternative career growth or career path for people to maybe become a franchisee in time, but betting on the possibilities from today and holding onto that hope with something concrete. And
there's so much potential, isn't there? Like, it's just
right?
For both sides as well, for buyers and sellers.
Absolutely. Like you'd have companies that been sitting on this asset, right? They didn't know even existed. We've unlocked the ability for them to monetize, and we've also given people, like regular people, again, like the ticket price for an ENOR is not that high, and so it provides the ability for even normal everyday person to bet and build a business around something very low for a very low price with a huge possible potential. And so it's and the most important job, I think, just going back to your question of what I believe the future of EdenMountain is what's our real core job is building a platform. We're doing all of this transactions and all of this discussion around ENORs frictionless, right? For both sides. I think one of the things, the scariest thing we've approached trying to do is standardize a legal contract across borders. That's an insanity, right? When you speak with founders and entrepreneurs, they told them, look, this is the core of our business. All of them say, look, are you insane? Because that's a very complicated thing to do. And we are doing it. Obviously, we're running a business, but also we are proving that this is possible. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about EdenMountain.
Absolutely, I fully agree. Okay, so in terms of like feedback from both buyers and sellers, how do you prioritize that for the EdenMountain platform and incorporate it into new updates?
It's one of the beautiful things about coming from a software background, right? I'm obsessed with the idea of build, measure, learn cycle, right? We structure our feedback into literally everything we do, not just on the platform in terms of support emails and support and forms, etc., but also direct conversations that I personally have with buyers and sellers. And the funny thing is that you build a system, right? You put it into people's hand, and you start, seeing how they use it and track users' feedback from that, and you discover that people are using the platform completely different than how we thought initially. We built a listing page that's centered around trying to find inors from a specific country. So you'd filter by country, and you see the inors there. And then we discovered that actually our buyers or our customers are not using it that way. What they are trying, always they do, they look for a brand, and then look where this brand is available. And so we had to do a switch, and that's, I think we made a post about it a couple of days ago. We rebuilt our listing page, so how the inord is structured, in a way to support that user journey. Now we highlight more the brands themselves to give the people the idea of what they are actually looking into and buying. And that's something we didn't know before putting it into people's hand. But a problem, and I think a lot of people who build companies and founders also, I'm sure, faced, is prioritization, right? We have a very limited resources. I have an amazing CTO, Iden works 24 hours a day, but he still only have 24 hours, right? So he can't build, we can't build everything at once. And so we need to decide what is the most valuable to our customers and our users, what provides the most actual business value, find the middle ground between that, and how much effort does it take. But and then prioritize based on that. But having a great CTO, me having this technical background, is allowing us to be quick on our feet. We are very quickly able to pivot, redesign our whole listing page, introduce new features based on users' feedback, stop developing some features and shifting the whole world to something else, because we have that ability, because we are technical founders, and we understand the technical aspects of the platform itself.
Brilliant. And okay, so I'm going to ask you that interview question that everyone hates now. If you could look 5 years into the future, where do you see EdenMountain, and what do you hope you will have achieved?
Every person on earth hates that question, right? You get asked it by HR, like, what the heck? How would I know in 5 years? But when building a company, I think that's very important, because you need to know where you are going and start building toward it. And in 5 years, I think, I hope at least, that inors would be considered a standard financing model for businesses. You talk about equity, debt, and you talk about inors as a growth strategy. And of course, I hope EdenMountain itself becomes the marketplace for this asset class. So we become synonyms with the idea of inors itself. Beyond the platform itself, I hope that we have something that I just talked about, which is proving that a business like EdenMountain could even exist, right? We work on standardizing a legal document. We work with lawyers across borders. Just proving that this can be done opens, I think, a lot of possibilities for other startups and founders worldwide. They say, okay, this is possible, what I can do with it, right? They don't need to do inors, we don't know competition, but they can do something else with the core idea of building on the legality of a contract, but internationalizing it, right? And that's, I think, very, very important. On a personal level, so beyond the business itself, it might be a bit of a cliche, but I think nothing would make me happier than seeing the brands on our platform selling their inors, and then seeing that their inors turned into maybe operation or turning into growth for them, right? And then I think that's the real metric that we should follow. Not just how many inors we've sold, but the actual economical value, genuine economic value and opportunities that have been generated through EdenMountain. You'd have, like we have a buyer from Saudi Arabia, like an entrepreneur buying the inor of seeing a business in Singapore that's very promising, buying their inor in Egypt. That dynamic, I think, is fascinating to me, and that I hope we will prove that what we created with EdenMountain is genuine economic value. We have companies that suddenly the whole planet open to them, and they have a lot of value they didn't have, and that across all the brands we have on the platform. And hopefully that number will increase. And all the buyers we have on our network, the economical value being generated I think is immense. And in 5 years, I hope that will be proven. On a selfish note, it's again like proving that being a technical founder, you can work, you can understand the commerce part, you can work with lawyers on the legal part, you can do the platform, and proving that technical founders are not just AI founders, right? They not just found AI service app that lives for 6 months, raise some capital, and then close shop, right? You can build something genuinely innovative and interesting. But again, to be frank, I couldn't have done it without our founder, Hassam. So maybe I'm just too lucky. I don't know.
No, it sounds fantastic. And I think you said it earlier, like it genuinely is revolutionizing, I think, investment opportunities and, as you say, growth strategies for business, which is so exciting to be a part of.
Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. So last question from me is, what's been the most unexpected challenge in bringing the Eno concept to market, and how did you overcome that?
So initially we thought, so let me start with like a year ago, or like effectively 2 years ago. So the concept of the idea started to crystallize. What we thought would be the hardest part is the technical platform and the legal framework, right? And those have been insanely complex. So the technical platform is not as much, but the legal framework insanely complex and cost us quite a lot of time and effort. But I think, and what's been surprising, the actual introduction of the idea to people, either brands and sellers or potential buyers. You know, I always tell this funny story. Way back when we just launched the platform, we started to onboard sellers, new brands, and it's, you know, the very first mover. So the first set of sellers on the platform, seller number one, we approached them, told them the idea, and they said, "This looks extremely interesting, but you know, it looks very suspicious. You know, are you a scammer? Like, you come to me, you tell me, you know, I give you a new asset class. Your company is now worth so much more, and you have this thing that you've never known that you can sell, and that you can sell it with us." We told them, look, we have an amazing board, Daniel Weil, Daniel Zhang, very big names that gives trust to the platform. Said, well, okay, let's onboard. It doesn't cost anything. Let's see how it develops. Fast forward, very, very short period of time, they sold their first Eno. So after the transaction happened, they got their money. We got an email from them saying, well, this is the worst scam on earth, because I've never seen a scammer that pays me money. I told them, well, because it's not a scam, right? It's a genuine opportunity. And so the education part of it has been very, very hard. And making people are, you know, when you talk to them about equity, about loans, about franchises, those concepts have existed since capitalism existed, right? It's very well traditional concepts. So we are introducing something new that does not sit well with any of those models. It's just between them. And so there is natural resistance. How did we overcome it? We are still in the process. So we haven't overcome it completely yet, but it's mostly about messaging and really using real world examples, right? People, you know, I sit with buyers and tell them, look, have you ever been in Barcelona or London and you saw a business that works well in your country, but you couldn't bring it in? And just the story I told you about Joe and Juice, for example, and I see instantly their eyes light up, right? And the gears start turning in their head, like, well, this happened to me 3 times, 4 times. Well, I was in a trip last week and I've seen an amazing business in Dubai that maybe I can bring. And people start thinking of the possibilities. However, something that's also have been interesting to see, and it's quite challenging, is that sellers and buyers have different messaging, right? What is working? So it's the same asset class, the same idea, the same concept, but it's being looked at from completely different perspectives. You go to a seller and we tell them, look, this is franchising without operational complexity. He said, okay, I got it. Say no more, right? But you go to a buyer and tell them, look, this is exclusivity or rights of a territory. You cannot operate it. You own the key entry of the market. It's a much harder conversation. It's a much different conversation. And finding the what works for each channel or each brand or type of user has been challenging. It's something we've been working on. But I've been extremely lucky to also have an amazing marketing manager, Harry. You know, he just told me before we started the interview that you see him sending you message at like ungodly hours, right? Like 2 a.m. And that's the reality of startups. But I've been very lucky to have him to basically lead that charge and lead our messaging and how we approach in terms of marketing and also sales.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think from my perspective as well, working with the EdenMountain team, working so hard and making such a huge impact, even in just a short amount of time. So I'm really excited to see what's to come.
Absolutely, thank you.